Mhm. I'm going to just share this small piece of information based on current situation, and I just want to give my two penneth worth today. About gang rapes and the the child trafficking rings and all of the stuff that's been quite prominent in the news just recently. I also don't want to be affiliated with anyone or mention any names or anything. But later on in this live stream, I will give a little more information. But I just want to share that about 5 years ago, the day before I was going to a big retreat, a heart-centered retreat where I was studying to do um, authentic communication from the heart. It was a very big event. It was a very deep dive for experienced people who'd done a lot of inner work. So this was the day before. And I was with a client who was telling me something that kind of pretty fired up my nervous system in quite a big way. And what she told me was that her daughter, 10 years prior, had been gang raped in Luton by about 20 Muslim men um, at a party. They were all lined up on the stairs, and her daughter and the daughter's friend um, were taken one by one by these men. And when her daughter got home, she called 999, and the police didn't believe this lady. They didn't believe what had happened to her daughter. And at this point, I was like almost in disbelief that something so severe and serious could happen, and the police didn't investigate and didn't believe it. And the next part of the story was that 10 years later, the the Rochdale inquest happened. And of course, this brought the memory flooding back to my client's mind. Um, and so she decided it was time to take it further. And so what she did was she contacted some very major relevant bodies by email and phone calls, and she managed to get hold of the original 999 call that went out to the police that they had basically uh, not listened to, not taken any notice of, thinking maybe I don't know what they thought. I have no idea. I'm not going to make any judgments on that. And now it was in the public eye, and now people were starting to open their minds as to the significance of this kind of behavior. It was investigated. Now, I haven't heard this. I'm going back now, sort of 5 years, okay, and I don't know what happened. The next day, I was actually so kind of like traumatized myself with what she told me, and obviously as a coach, I can hold a lot, but that was one of the most shocking stories I'd ever heard. And given that it took 10 years for another case to come into the public arena, to be reported on, to be investigated, that she was even taken seriously. And the only reason that they looked into it, I don't think they'd listened to the 999 call, but the only reason they'd listened to it was based on hearing this 999 call. So that's really what I wanted to share. what was quite fascinating to me was the next day when I went onto this to Holland to this training, this retreat that I participated in. It was part of my study, part of my training was that we did 7 days of authentic relating and sharing. And what happens is you're building up throughout the week so that by day 7, we have built a very strong community, a very strong group, and what conspired. And some people at this point are going to switch off, and that's fine. Like you've probably heard what I had to share. But the next bit for me is really profound because it was the probably the moment that I felt like I had experienced everything that took my nervous system so far to the edge that the Divine Mother expressed herself through me on that mat with 70 other people witnessing. And apparently, I even blew the nervous system of the facilitator as well. It was like it was so profound. It was so mind-blowingly, what's the word? I can't even find the word. It was just like, this is the state of where humanity is at. This is 5 years ago. And what happened was on this last day, I shared the story of what had happened with my client the day before I had arrived in Holland for this training. And as I shared it, and I've got goosebumps right now, another woman around my age spoke, and she told me the same story, the same thing had happened to her young daughter. Exactly the same story. Her daughter had been gang raped by a group of Muslims. And at that moment, what we do in a heart circle is we use the mat to express through the voice, through the body, because very often we cannot express just with words. The mind cannot even begin to conceive certain things, or even like just going into a kind of a therapy perspective, we need to express because what we repress begins to eat away at our bodies. And so we express through sound, through movement. We kind of bypass the logic, the rationale. And so on that mat, I screamed on all fours, and I screamed and I cried and I wept and I shook and I screamed and I shouted and I roared. I literally roared for every single woman on this planet and our ancestors, and for every woman that has ever lived. And this is not a knock against men. This is a reaction. This is a response to what is happening to our women right here today. And I have to say that I have been guided to share this today because my brother just sent me a video. I've been following Tommy Robinson, and he's just done a video last night, an interview with an amazing woman who I've never come across before. And I'll put the link in the comments. But just let that sink in. Do you have any stories of similar? And I feel really at peace that I have shared this publicly. So if you know anybody else that has had a similar situation, maybe you'd like to share this video and maybe this will help a woman or a mother somewhere. Namaste.